I think with how Jordan Love played last week, it makes this matchup even more intriguing. Tom, is there something that you're particularly looking at to attack this week?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the Chargers' defense absolutely sucks. And we kind of talked about this last week, that the Chargers had only held some incredibly bad quarterbacks to under 21 points. Every serviceable, startable quarterback had scored over that point. Jordan Love scored, I think it was 20.9 points, which kind of summed it up, really. Like, he was right on that kind of boundary of what other quarterbacks have been doing well. But this week, I really like the Lions. I think that they're a good team. They've allowed the seventh most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So it's not an area that they've completely clamped down on opponents. I think that what the Packers will have to do well is to really get their pass catchers involved. The Lions rank 14th against wide receiver ones, 31st against wide receiver twos, 18th against wide receiver threes. So getting the likes of Jaden Reed involved, who we've seen be very productive over the last few weeks, getting the likes of Romeo Dubs involved. Christian Watson has to get going at some point. You know, he scored a touchdown last week, but he's still been one of the worst picks in fantasy football this year. So I have a little bit less faith in AJ Dillon. You know, he's not somebody I've been particularly high on at any point this year. His splits with and without Aaron Jones are pretty much identical. He scored like 0.3 PPR points more when Aaron Jones hasn't been on the field. They seem to actually use him less in the receiving game in games without Aaron Jones than in games with him. When Aaron Jones is playing, they both mix into that receiving role sometimes. But when Aaron Jones is out, they seem to want to use one of their additional backups for that. It'll be interesting this week because with Aaron Jones injured, with the backup whose name escapes me right now, they've hit the point where they're re-signing James Robinson off the street, and the other running back, Patrick Taylor, is it, who was formerly with them, who never did anything. But the Lions defense, you know, they rank 8th in DVOA against the run. They rank 12th against the pass. They're not an easy defense to have a UA with. And for me, this game, if I'm attacking this for the Thanksgiving slate, I'm looking at this purely from the Lions side. I think you look at David Montgomery with 192 yards and 2 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Gibbs, 26 targets in his last 4, 5 rushing touchdowns in his last 4. Amon-Ra, you know, he averages 21.3 points per game. So all of those players feel really easy picks. I've talked in our Discord this week about how on Thanksgiving slates you can get a little bit weird. You can try things you wouldn't normally. And that's where I've landed on that, you know, I'll definitely have at least one lineup where I put both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in because we've seen them both be fantastically good at the same time. The Packers have struggled against the run plenty this year. You know, they allowed Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris to both be top 10 running back options a couple of weeks ago. But basically everything that Detroit does well, the Packers struggle to defend against. You know, they are ranked 14th against wide receiver 27th against wide receiver ones, and they're ranked 25th in DVOA against tight ends. So this could be the kind of get-right spot that Sam Laporta needs after 2 games outside the top 12. And I think if you're looking at this from the Lions side, as long as you're adding at least 2 pass catchers to Jared Goff's stacks, I don't think you're going to go wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting you talking about potentially a get-right week for Sam Laporta. I want it to be true. There's this trend that when Gibbs and Montgomery have both been healthy and used extensively, Laporta's basically been the one to miss out in this offense. I'm hoping that that's just small sample size. I think that Laporta's good enough that he can produce, even with Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown fully firing in this offense. I think if we see it this week, maybe we need to start believe that it is a trend. On the other side of the fence, AJ Dillon, you said his splits don't change whether Aaron Jones is playing or not. That's because AJ Dillon's not very good. Like, he's not very good with Aaron Jones in the lineup. He's not very good without him. The player I want to touch on, though, is Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave's gone on IR. We know that he was the rookie that broke out and was looking good. I rather famously said I thought Tucker Kraft was a better NFL prospect as a receiver than Luke Musgrave. That's perhaps not looked great through 12 weeks. But do you think there's any interest potentially in this week at 2.5K on DraftKings? Could he potentially sneak in as a sneaky play this week? You're on mute, Tom.
So yeah, Luke Musgrave's now on IR with, was it a lacerated kidney after he fell on the ball? That's definitely a new one that I've not seen before. With Kraft, yeah, it's definitely been a much slower start to the season for him. You know, he's had 5 total touches through 11 games. And I think what you're kind of hoping for here with any of these tight ends in this 2,500 range is that they're going to do enough to give you a real difference-making score compared to the guys like George Kittle on the Thanksgiving slate, like Sam Laporta. And I just find it really difficult to believe that that's going to actually come to pass. So for me, I'm just not really interested in these tight ends. I think perhaps if they were maybe the second tight end on a team and you were looking to put them into flex, possibly. But, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Josiah DeGura still out there, plenty. Ben Sims out there. I think, Kraft's played the most snaps of these 3, playing 31% compared to DeGura's 22%, Sims 9%. But I don't think it's going to be like for like. And the Lions allow the 9th lowest catch rate to opposing tight ends. So it just feels like you're really praying for a touchdown. And even then, it might not be enough to do the business.
Yeah, maybe I'm digging too deep into the weeds. If you're here, if you're watching live, get those questions in the comments below. We love answering all your start, sit, trade questions. Fire them in. We will answer 100% of those questions.